Hey, it's Jo, and it's time for another book review video. This book is Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love by Amir Levine, MD, and Rachel S.F. Heller, MA. Attached. I got this book because it was recommended to me by a therapist I've been seeing to learn more about relationships and how to be in a healthy relationship, because that's a very important thing for me. And so I read this book, my partner read this book as well, and it's interesting. I will say that it is interesting, and it has given me a new lens to look at all relationships through, which is kind of fascinating to me, actually. I have found this book somewhat simplistic in its look into relationships, and I wish it went into more in depth and talked about, it doesn't actually talk about all the styles of attachment. So the three main styles of attachment, to break it down for you, that it talks about are secure attachment, anxious attachment, and avoidant attachment, which the vast majority, 95% or something like that, of the population will fall into one of those three types. And there's this tiny sliver of the population, apparently, according to this book, that will fall into the anxious avoidant category of attachment. So they're a bit anxious, bit avoidant. That's apparently me. So I'm mostly secure, a little bit anxious avoidant, according to the quiz that the counselor sent me that I did. So it wasn't helpful for me in that sense, because I want to know more. I want to understand myself more. And want to understand, like, well, what's going on with me then? And how can I be better in relationship with other people as well? It did help me understand my partner better, and that was super helpful. And what's been really interesting to me is that, because it's always much easier to see other people than it is to see yourself, right? It's so much easier to understand other people's problems and to know the solutions to other people's problems than it is to get yourself. And so I was reading this and I went, oh my gosh, this is my mother. This is her and all of her relationships, and the reason why she had such difficulty finding happiness and contentment in her relationships, because she had anxious attachment and she would always pretty much go for people who had avoidant attachment style. And so there's always this push and pull, this, like, really intense, passionate, pursuit in the relationship. And then once they were together, then, they would pull away and they wouldn't want to be with her. And then she would be like, well, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? And that would activate her anxious attachment system. And she would, drive herself crazy, basically, going over and over, like, what am I doing wrong? Why doesn't he want to be with me? But I love him. And that would push him away more. But then at some point he would come back and she'd be like, oh yes, it's real and it's wonderful and I love being with him. And then he would go away again, and it was just this over and over again. And I went, oh my gosh, this is just a typical case of this. And it was so interesting to read that. And now, even when I'm reading books or watching TV shows or anything, I'm like, okay, so this person has anxious attachment, this person has avoidant attachment, this person's secure. You can see it, you can see the patterns that people have and people display, and understand what's going on, the underlying relationship dynamics that are going on. And that's really interesting and fascinating to me. So I will say that this book helps explain all of that, even though it's not as nuanced as I would like it to be. And I feel like the authors have a bias against people with avoidant attachment and towards people with anxious attachment, in that they say that folks with anxious attachment don't need to do anything differently and don't need to change, whereas folks with avoidant attachment, they seem to encourage to change, how they do things. And I don't think either of those things are quite maybe the most effective ways to go about doing things. That's just my opinion. So it was interesting, it was insightful, it's really easy to read as well, it's not a hard read. That's my take on this. Now you know more about me and my attachment style than you probably ever wanted to. Let me know what you think, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next video. If you were wondering what all the little bell ringing sounds were in that video, it was Mr. Data Pants here. He was chasing around things on the floor of my office as I was recording. Do you want to say hello to people? Look at them with your big blue eyes and charm them like you do the rest of us. Mwah. We love him. He's naughty, but he's very, very cute. And also a sweetie, aren't you? You are. We love you very much.